Time to have some fun here on ProBox TV, your boxing channel, with the Social Corner. This is the show where we hear from you and we get your comments and then we react to those comments. George DiMatteo is in studio with Paulie Malignaggi and Chris Algieri. We got Sean Porter and George Jakovic joining us as well. All right, George, let's get into the comments because I know the people have dropped some good ones.
Yeah, they have. And I want to start this one. If you guys remember in the last show, the very first question was from Antonio. He wanted advice. If he was in a club and a guy's big as Francis Ngannou was there and was hitting on this girl, what should he do? Now, he had some, this is coming from Bang Bang Bigelow. He had some first question responses for you guys. He kind of paraphrased what you guys said. For Sean, yo, don't mess with my lady, as I step back, because, you know, Sean gave that advice. Chris said, every guy thinks that they can fight. Not true. Now, for Paulie, he said, that's my side piece. So that was his interpretation of
That's a good
how
way
that
out.
would go.
The side piece is open pastures.
Yeah.
Right. So
That
that's
is my
how
girl.
that went.
Side piece taker.
Yeah, you don't die for the side piece. You know, yeah.
Right. But so here's the first one coming from Massimo. We'll start with you, Sean. This is a pretty good one for all three of you. If there was a biopic film made about your boxing career, what would it be called? And which actor would you want to play you?
Man, so here, when you start with me, Jamie Foxx has always been one of my favorite actor comedians. I ran into him one time. This was years ago, like my first time ever seeing him. And I said, "What's up?" to him, introduced myself. He said, "Yeah, I know who you are. We look like family." And I was like wide-eyed, like, you know, so people have always told me that I look like Jamie Foxx. They always told my dad that he looked like Fox. So even though Fox is a little bit older, Fox would play me in whatever film I'm in. And what would the name of the name of the movie or biopic would be Hit Hard, Speak Easy.
All right. That's pretty good for on the fly. Paulie, I gotta.
You open a low key bar. Speaking.
Yeah, I was gonna say, or is that on the fly?
So Paulie, same question for you.
I don't know. First of all, I would never do a bio in a book or in a movie because I would have to throw too many people under the bus, and then I'd wind up in court because they would say that I'd be you know,
That's not surprising.
You'd
be a snitch.
No, they would be saying that I'd be assassinating their character, even though it would all be true. So I'd rather not
change the names.
I'd rather not even go through the hassle. So I would never do, because if I can't do a book on my terms and I can't do a movie on my terms, then I wouldn't want it regardless. But if it was for argument's sake to happen, I don't know. I feel like this actor is more Chris's look than my look, but I still like him. And I with black hair, Zac Efron. I was gonna say Cuba Gooding Jr., but you know, I liked him in Gladiator. But you know, I mean, plus he's a big boxing fan, and I like Cuba a lot. You know, I'm not dark complexion enough for Cuba, so I go with Zac Efron. And what would it be called? I don't know, man. I mean,
that's a tough one.
The Magic Man.
The name.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of corny. My nickname's already.
Yeah, Paulie wouldn't do anything corny.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I feel like the book will be called Misunderstood, but the movie, I don't know. All
right. Well, you know, we can work on that, but
we're not going to work on it because, like I told you, it'll never happen. I actually wouldn't allow it to happen myself. So.
No, not work on that. We'll work on the title to the movie. That'll come later. But Sean raised his hand. Sean, you.
Oh yeah, no. I always tell you. Well, I always tell you. It's all about me, by the way. But I always tell you guys that I'm working on things. I am working on my documentary, and I'm pretty sure we're gonna name the documentary "Thunderstorm."
That's
cool. All right,
cool.
Yeah.
All right. That's so Chris. Chris probably has a script already. So
I've been asked if I was writing, because, you know, I'm an author, and people ask if I was writing an autobiography. I'm like, well, no, I'm not even close to done yet. So I got a lot more to do before I would ever even think about doing something like that. But so the actor that I always get tagged in photos or videos of this guy boxing is the guy that I'm going to say. It's Chris Hemsworth. There's a video of him hitting a heavy bag. Really? People tag me all the time. Like, is that Chris? I thought it was Chris Algieri. He's a big guy. Like, he's tall. He's a big Australian dude. But in terms of, I like the way he acts. Obviously, you know, there's certain looks that he could pull off Chris Algieri. But yeah, so I would say Hemsworth. And then in terms of the the movie name, which is tough.
He was in Rush, right?
Yeah, he was Hunt. Yeah. But you actually just gave me a good idea by what you were saying. I would call it My Way, which is, for one, it's Frank Sinatra's one of my favorite songs of his. But it's just the way that I carried my career. I did everything my way, and I was always like that my entire life. So it wouldn't be just my boxing career, but I didn't want help. I felt like I didn't need help. I was dead wrong. But I felt like I could always do everything my own way. And I remember even coming up with the promoter that I had. A lot of people were like, I've never seen him deal with anyone the way he deals with you. It's like, it seems like you can get things done. You're able to do the things you want to do. I'm like, yeah, I'd like to do things my way. I don't really like to fall in line. So yeah, My Way would be the name.
All right, that's a good one. Well, Spooky Toothable had something about Paulie. This isn't a question; it's just a quote.
Yeah.
Spooky Toothable said, "Anytime Paulie talks longer than 5 minutes, ProBox needs a criminal attorney to consult." Remember Paulie talked about splitting wigs in that last show?
Because I end up going overboard and I get myself in trouble.
Little bit. But
I gotta keep my rants short so I don't get myself canceled.
Paulie gets excited.
now I have a question because I'm a fan, and I'm asking this to Sean because listen, we've talked about this a lot, but the fans talk about this all the time. So Sean, my question to you: in their primes, Paulie versus Chris, who wins that fight?
There we go.
Oh man,
Love doing
in
it.
their primes, that's a good, like, stylistically really good boxing match too. I think Paulie wins in his prime. Paulie would have been fast, touch and go. Chris would have been one step behind. It is what it is, Chris. You were slow.
But in his prime, Chris became a pressure fighter too.
Yeah. Oh.
All right, well, that was pretty quick and pretty definitive. You didn't have to think about it.
I don't
though.
know. I had to think about it. Yeah, no, Chris, no. In his prime, his feet weren't fast enough for Paulie.
Chris, any response to that?
I'm not gonna argue with the man's opinion.
Listen, here's the bottom line.
Opinion, Joe. I mean,
Here's the bottom line. I'm trying to get Paulie on my show next month.
I'm old news. I'm old news. I've already been on the show. I've already been on the show. He don't need me anymore.
Chris is the ex-girlfriend already.
I'm already decided.
I feel like, yo, I don't know, questions like that like don't offend me. Like, you
No,
know,
me
stuff
either.
like honestly, you know, there's been arguments over like dream fights that people get into big fights. I remember a few years back when
Right.
I was doing my old podcast, we were talking about two guys in Russia that argued about who would win between Klitschko and Tyson, and one guy got mad that he was defending Tyson so much that he stabbed and killed his friend over the argument. You know what I mean?
Wow.
The Russian guy
Okay.
stabbed his
Well.
friend who thought Klitschko would be Tyson, and the guy who was defending Tyson stabbed the guy to death. You know?
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know. I feel like there's no reason to argue these kind of things. It's like, you know, you break them down opinion wise, and that's it. I mean,
Right.
I think they're fun conversations.
Listen, at the end of the day, for me, I've seen more of Paulie than I saw Chris. Like, I'm big on personality. I'm big on like just how approachable and how you as a person. And when it comes to Chris, for me, I was drawn into him as a person, as an individual. Didn't watch as much of him as a fighter. Of course, I saw everything that he did on the back end of his career, but I couldn't right off the top just pick where he was in his prime. But I just know a lot about Paulie. Obviously, fought him, so I had to study him, and you know, I kind of knew about him coming out of the amateur when I was in the amateurs and things like that. So I mean, I know more about Paulie. And you know, when I look at it stylistically, it's like I can pick everything that Paulie did well, and I would really have to dig into the cranium to pull out for Chris. But the other side of that is, man, like Chris is a dynamite commentator, boxing analyst. So to me, it's like, yeah, it's easy for me to say Paulie will win that fight because I just know Paulie more inside of the ring than I do Chris.
If I had any
Fair enough.
argument at all for this one, George, it would be that I don't think anyone really got to see me in my prime. I lost a lot of years, a lot of good years of my prime. I had two 2-year layoffs in my early 30s. And I would argue that my prime, a lot of it was wasted. I had some great nights and did wonderful things in this sport, but by reasons outside of my own control, I lost big chunks of my prime.
I
So,
also feel like as you get older, you get more knowledgeable, but your physical ability diminishes. You know, and I feel like I was watching Chris improved over the course of my career as I was coming to an end and I was watching Chris kind of ascend to the title shot and the title fights that he had, like when he came out and fought Amir Khan aggressively, I didn't see that coming. You know what I mean? Like I was like, oh, this is another wrinkle to this kid that I didn't know. You know what I mean? And then he fought Eric Bonet, who I used to spar with Eric Bonet, and Sean, you fought Bonet too. Crafty guy, man. You know, crafty guy. I thought that was gonna be a tougher fight than it ended up being.
Yeah.
And Chris just took it to him. And so I was like, oh man, there's a different wrinkle to Chris. He's still improving as he's getting older. So, you know, unfortunately for all of us, your prime runs out while your brain is actually getting smarter and understanding this thing, this boxing thing a lot more. That's why we all become analysts, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking, I was way more fluid than people gave me credit for in terms of what I could do stylistically. A lot of people were just like, oh, he's a pure boxer. Andre Ward said it one day. He's like, he watched a lot of me throughout my career, and he said it on air one day. And he was like, Chris can mimic a lot of different styles. He figures out ways to win. Sometimes I was wrong, though. I picked the wrong style, and it didn't work out. But I was always willing to try, and I had a lot of folds to my game.
Well, he's trying to sway you, Sean. But listen, let's keep it going. We got more questions. I got another one from Tyson Ali, and this is a good one, and it's very appropriate. Start with you, Sean. And this is about the late, great Carl Weathers, who just passed away, known for playing Apollo Creed. But Sean, what was the late, great Carl Weathers' best movie?
Oh,
he did
man.
a lot of good movies, man. Besides,
no, I really what did he do? He did Aliens, right?
Predator.
No, Predator.
Predator. I always get those two mixed up. Yeah, he did Predator. I mean, I think that's the one outside of Rocky 1 and 2, or whatever.
He stole mine. He took mine. I was gonna say Action Jackson.
No, you can say the same movie.
Oh yeah, Action Jackson. He was smooth in Action Jackson.
Yeah, he was. I just watched that again.
That movie was very bad, but awesome.
Yeah.
A lot of 80s movies are so bad that they're good. You know, I feel like,
Well, Paulie.
They don't carry. But if you were in the 80s, it's like that movie.
Yeah,
I love
so
it. I don't care how bad it's still bad. It's good. I love it.
I'm in. But Paulie, how about you? What was his best movie?
I just
for you?
said it. Action Jackson.
Chris, same thing,
the
Chris?
Apollo Creed character is very, very endearing. It's a very, very endearing character because I think it was. I don't know if it was Julian Williams who said this. The extreme middleweight champions. I remember hearing a fighter say that he goes, Rocky was so good that Rocky had the brothers in the hood cheering for him against the black guys in the movies. You know what I mean? But I feel like a lot of that is also because the endearing quality of Apollo and the friendship he strikes. Obviously, these are all characters and obviously not real people. What I'm saying is the way Carl Weathers was able to play this character who is endearing to you even when he's fighting Rocky, because there's a human side to him. You know, he's giving the opportunity to this a young upstart, and he feels like he's better than him, but then he has all this respect for him after they fight, and then they fight and they strike up this friendship, and it becomes a lifetime bond kind of thing, you know? And I feel like that also goes a long way in why that could be said about, you know, the brothers in the hood cheering for Rocky against the brothers, right? So, and I feel like the friendship and the way Carl Weathers played Apollo so well, and the way he made him so endearing, in his in the entire scope of the Rocky movies, that, you know, creates that other situation there, you know. And I feel like that is a big credit to the way Weathers was able to play Apollo. I could never picture somebody else being able to play Apollo that well. I mean, obviously now
you know what, Paulie, Kenny Norton. Kenny Norton was the one who was considered the guy who was playing Apollo.
And
well, that certainly wouldn't have worked out because Sly Stallone's about 5'8", and Kenny Norton's.
You could see, you could have seen he wasn't a heavyweight.
I think that was probably a big deal too, is the fact that Norton was probably too big, and Sly's playing a heavyweight, but he's not really a heavyweight in real life.
How much did Sly weigh in the movies?
I don't know, but
they make him look like a heavyweight.
He was probably walking around like probably around 190, 200, but by the time he was filming, he was probably 175.
I mean,
he was
Carl Weathers is 6'1", 6'2", so Carl Weathers he was a football player, so he's a pretty tall dude. So
but he was super lean too. They built him down. If you remember, actually, you just watch Action Jackson. He was much bigger in Action Jackson. Much bigger.
Predator.
So I was gonna say. So George, on my answers, I'm gonna. I love going after Paulie because he always makes me think about different things. And the character Dylan that he played in Predator, with that iconic scene with the two biceps coming together, and they're like,
You
Dylan,
son
you
of a
son
bitch.
of a bitch, bong, and they make that iconic scene, the two of them. That character is, as much as it was a minor character, it wasn't a minor character in the movie, but he didn't have a lot of airtime. There wasn't a lot of talking in that movie anyway. But he really he carried the dialogue of that movie and kind of had the underlying story. He was the guy who was in charge. He was kind of a dick, and you didn't like him in the beginning. But then again, like you said, Paulie, the endearing qualities that he was able to portray across the film screen. As the movie went on, he became more of a likable character, and by the end, you were like sad to see him go. Because he was like told them, he's go ahead, I'll take care of this, and then he gets his arm blown off and then gets picked up.
But he went out
George,
like a warrior though. He went out like
like a warrior, fighting like a warrior.
against-
Yeah, he lost one arm, goes to the other gun and the other arm. Very, very cool.
Yeah.
I'm surprised no one said Happy Gilmore.
Well, you know,
Because-
he's an
Chubbs.
honorable mention.
He was
You know, Happy
amazing.
Gilmore's a funny character because he's
Chubbs.
not playing that kind of guy in Happy Gilmore.
Right.
He's playing actually a different kind of guy, so it's a little bit of versatility.
Yeah.
He's not playing that super arrogant guy, but at the same time, he's confident in what he was as a golfer, and he's teaching Happy some stuff.
Always please playing the
But
old
a
pro.
200
But he's
He's
playing
the old
pro. He's-
cocky
yeah,
guy.
Yeah.
he's-
But a
it's-
250-pound golf pro, like you
Yeah.
never think that, you know?
Hey.
Yeah.
Hey,
So-
George, you have the list, right? Do you have the list? Why don't you pick a
Pick a
topic
question.
if you've got the list in front of you?
Okay. Okay. We got one here from. Oh, this is a good one. Trissa ProBox says, "As a healthy guy, Chris, what are your cheat meals?"
I get this
So-
one a lot.
And then Paulie and Chris, and Paulie and Sean, you guys can too, especially when you're in training camp.
I'm always cheating right now.
When you were in
Yeah,
your cheat.
they're
got
all
Dunkin' Donuts
cheat
in the
meals
oven
now. I
right now.
mean,
Sean, you're missing out.
No, man, I got a Starbucks sandwich here right now.
So-
My cheat meals during camp were always cheeseburgers.
Mm,
Cheeseburgers and
okay.
fries. I would once a week, every Thursday. So when I was training in Oxnard, California, Robert Garcia's camp. I mean, it was such brutal camps. Like we sparred 3 days a week. There was tons of bodies. Everybody was tough. We trained twice a day, morning and night. That's where I really learned what training camps really looked like. And it was 6 days a week, twice a day. Really, really rough. And I found myself, if I was eating too clean all week long, I was running out of juice. So come Thursday, I was like shot, and it would be like my big cheat would be like this. They had this place right by the hotel where we stayed, like this big bacon cheeseburger with avocado and French fries. And I would
Oh.
eat everything on that plate, and it would like
So-
revamp my life Friday,
Oh,
Saturday.
that was once a week. You did that
week,
once a
every
week.
Thursday. Every Thursday night, I would do that.
Sean, did you have a cheat meal while you were in training camp?
No, I had cheat cookies.
Cheat snacks.
I'm literally I'm a cookie monster. My son the other day, he comes in the room. He said something. He said, "Yeah, you always have your little desserts." I'm like,
Did he say it like that too? With
Yeah,
with
just like that. He said,
dessert?
Little
Yeah,
dessert.
yeah, he said, "Yeah, Daddy with his little desserts." I was like,
Interesting.
yeah, it like hit me and let me know like you nothing has changed. You know, you still got cookies by the bed, you still got cake by the bed and things like that. That was kind of my thing. Was it? I have a sweet tooth, so anytime I needed something, it wasn't pizza, it wasn't burgers, it wasn't French fries, anything heavy. It was something sweet. Usually that was my battle in camp, was getting off the sweets. When I got off the sweets, weight came right off.
Yeah, mine was fats. I wanted something really fatty.
Paulie,
How about you,
did
Paul?
you have a cheat meal during training camp?
I mean, I couldn't afford a lot of cheat meals during training camp because I would have made weight, man. I was always so paranoid about my weight. But like Chris reminded me that there would be at times where I would feel a little bit diminished. I would have maybe allowed myself some rice at times earlier in the camp, just a little bit of carbs because I stayed away from
Man.
a lot of big carbs. But if I was gonna say a cheat thing in general that I liked, that I craved, that I at times would cheat with, would be a soda, a cola, a can of Coke, or a can of Pepsi. I love cola. I hate Diet Cola, but I love regular cola. That was about as much as I could have allowed myself to cheat here and there if it wasn't the rice. Where the rice was more so I used to try to pick up some carbs and energy. But I would at times cheat with a cola because you can afford to a little bit more than like if you have a pizza. A pizza will kill you. It'll really kill you. It's such a
Yeah,
back
right.
a week,
Yeah.
I
Well,
got
I got a-
quick story, George. I'm sorry to cut you off. So it was before my first world title fight kickboxing. So I'm 21 years old. And at that age, I just thought discipline, everything just had to be hard and painful. I thought everything just had to be terrible. So training camp was terrible. and I was restricting myself so much, kind of similar to how Paulie was apparently treating his entire career. And,
Misery.
yeah, I was miserable the entire camp, and the camp was really long because I just didn't know any better. I was 21 years old. I was preparing for my first world title fight. It was a 12-round fight, kickboxing, and I was just, I mean, one day I was just broken down. I had a bad session sparring. I leave the gym, and I'm just broken mentally, physically, everything about. I'm just like, this is just not. And I'm like 10 days out from the fight, and so I'm really down on myself. Next thing I know, I found myself in Taco Bell. And I'm tucked in the corner of this Taco Bell in Huntington Station, New York, and I am devouring burrito after
And
burrito.
everything tastes so good when you know you can't have it. Even the simple fast food tastes like a gourmet
This
meal when you know
didn't.
you can't
Paulie,
have it.
I was in a corner like this, literally like a broken man, like full of shame, just full of shame. Long story short, I ended up making weight just fine. I knocked the guy out. I won my first world title.
Ah, well, that's at least I had a good ending.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
listen, we got a good fantasy fight from ProBox fan. Says ProBox TV, please feature some of my fantasy fights during your sparring sessions, but we're gonna do one now. This is a good one, Sean. Floyd Mayweather versus Tommy the Hitman Hearns at 147. Who's gonna take that one?
It is what it is, y'all. Hitman takes that. It is what it is. And when I went back and watched a little bit of Hitman's career, watched like how his origin from the amateurs and stuff like that. I truly don't think Tommy was as skillful as you would expect, given how much boxing he had done at a young age and grew up doing the sport. He wasn't quite as skillful as I personally would have expected him to be, but he knew what he was doing. A lot like Deontay Wilder, he just had this feeling on when to let that right hand go. He knew how to set it up. He had speed. I mean, clearly he had pop. Yeah, Hitman wins that fight. Is what it is.
Paulie.
Yeah, it's hard for me to see anybody beating Hearns in history at welterweight, honestly. Literally anybody. I mean, if you look at it, Ray Leonard lost more rounds than he won against Hearns in 2 fights, both fights. I mean, he was behind in the first fight, and in the second fight, they robbed Hearns and they made it a draw, even though that was at a higher weight than welterweight. But a welterweight Tommy Hearns, I think, is the most difficult guy to deal with in history. And I feel like Floyd Mayweather is actually a more complete fighter, like echoing a bit of what the champ Sean is saying. Well, I don't know if Tommy had all of the skills, but the physical traits that Tommy had, his ability at range and his ability to hurt you and his ability to set up that right hand, and he had a very good jab. And again, knowing that range, that long range that he had almost an 80-inch reach, I think, and he had a very good jab. And if you try to penetrate that jab, he'd run you into a right hand. I feel like at welterweight it's just too much to deal with. Honestly, I don't know. I would probably pick Hearns against any welterweight in history, including Leonard on a different night than they fought. Like if they fought like a day later, I don't know if Leonard may have ended up being, I don't want to say fortunate because Leonard did grind it down, but I to a degree fortunate enough to track Hearns down late in that fight. I mean, Hearns may win that fight any other time. It was interesting. And George, you probably watched the fight live. I watch it on video. One question I have about Hearns and Leonard, Davey Pearl is the ref, right? He stops that fight with Hearns falling on the ropes. But like, don't you think? Doesn't it look like Hearns could continue? I mean, I don't know. Was he out like that? Was he out like?
He wasn't out, but he was getting hurt quite a bit.
He was getting hurt,
Because
but
you're realizing he's winning the fight, so you don't give him
Davey
that chance.
Pearl had a weird night that night because there was one, I think it was the 13th, that should have been a knockdown, and he didn't count as a knockdown, and he was helping Hearns up. So it was kind of a weird. It was kind of a weird night for Davey Pearl, but so you have Hearns beating Mayweather.
Yeah, I have Hearns beating every welterweight in history, and like I said, I say that feeling that Mayweather is also the more skillful guy, but I feel like there's a lot to deal with Hearns at welterweight. Hearns at welterweight, I think, beats every welterweight in history.
Real quick, I just want to clear up something I said because I said it's not as skillful. I meant like he wasn't as fluid. He didn't have the fluidity that I say. He seemed a little tighter than I would have expected. That's what I wanted. I didn't mean that he lacked skill, that he lacked intelligence and things like that. So I just want to clear that up real quick.
Chris?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I've posed this question many times before to a lot of boxing people, and I've always had Tommy Hearns beating Floyd. And for echoing the sentiments of these two great champions, but even beyond that, I just think stylistically, I don't think that shoulder roll would have worked on someone like Tommy, who's so long and fast. People forget how fast Tommy was. Tommy had very fast hands. Usually tall, long guys are not that quick off the trigger. He is. And not
Motor
only-
City Cobra.
I
That was his
mean,
other nickname,
exactly,
remember?
that right
Motor
hand.
City
I mean,
Cobra.
when he was ready to pull that trigger and snap, forget it. And the jab that he could hit you with from across the ring, and he threw it from his hip. The thing was hard to see. It came fast. He could double it, and then that right hand was a millisecond behind it. That shoulder roll stuff, having your hand down in front of him, no shot. And then if Floyd has to go into walking him down like this, there's going to be too much coming his way. And I don't think he would be able to deal with the physicality of a guy like Tommy Hearns. And Champ, I agree with you. At 47, the only guy who I think could ever beat him is one of the best fighters who's ever lived, and that's Sugar Ray Leonard. And even on that night, he had to go through hell to get it. And I don't know if they fought 10 times that it wouldn't be 5-5 or 6-4. It was
9-1.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, the way that Tommy was like. But
Real quick, my first time meeting Tommy, he looked at me. He said, "What weight you fight at?" I said, 147. He looked at me. Said, "I'd have kicked your ass."
Oh, thank you, sir. Hey, George, I know we're out of time. I just wanted to read one quick one. Chick says, Paulie loves telling stories. He will make a fantastic grandfather someday. So there you go. There's a little uplifting. So, George, I know we're out of time, and we have so many more questions, but that's all we got, George.
Yeah, we'll get to them next time on The Social Corner. And don't forget, like and subscribe on our YouTube channel. We're trying to get to 100,000 subscribers, and the 100,000 subscriber gets gifts and prizes here on ProBox TV. All right, another great edition of Social Corner. We're going to do it again next week here on ProBox TV, your boxing channel.